I can't breathe.
It looks awful. That's because it's on you, dear.
Hey folks, it's the Blind Guy, and I am back. Sorry for the hiatus. I've been a little under the weather, and as you can tell, I am still under the weather. But I figured I love you guys so much, I'm going to come in here and try to do a review even when I'm sick. So here goes. On this episode, we're taking a look at 1959's Sleeping Beauty. My kids wanted to watch this, and I love it when they want to watch these older ones. And so we sat down and we watched it together, and then they immediately wanted to watch it again. So they sat down and watched it again, and I went and did something else. But I thought, you know, that does classify as a good old movie, so let's do a review of it. Like I said, this movie came out in 1959. It was produced by Walt Disney Pictures. Has several directors, so I won't go through those. Walt Disney did have quite a bit of influence on this one. It's often considered to be one of the original princess fairy tale trilogy. Often people will consider Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty as the original, the OG princesses, if you will. And to be honest, it is my favorite of those three by quite a bit. I think we all know the story of the movie. Princess Aurora is born, and a birthday party is given in her honor, and Maleficent, the mistress of evil, as the movie calls her, is one of the fairies who is not invited to the party, and because she's quite petty, she gets upset and gives a prophecy that Aurora will prick her finger on a spinning wheel before she turns 16 and die, and then the prophecy's altered so that she'll only fall asleep by one of the other good fairies. And that's what the movie is about, is that if she gets kissed by true love's kiss before the end, actually I don't think there actually is a time limit on it. I just think she'll sleep until she's kissed, and then she'll wake up. It's interesting because the story is actually told through almost the perspective of the three good fairies and then Maleficent, who's the bad fairy. The three good fairies in the original story are named Tranquility, Fernadel, and Merryweather, and then Disney changed that to Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. And it's always been a little confusing for me because Flora is actually the reddish pink one, the one that likes pink, and Fauna is the green one, which I always, in my mind, I think Flora should be the green one since that's plants, but I always get that confused. But it's actually Flora is the red pink one, and Fauna is the green one. Merryweather is the funny little blue one. And they have the most screen time in this movie by far, along with Maleficent, and the most dialogue. And so it's almost like Star Wars was originally supposed to be told through the perspective of the droids before Lucas went back and a little revisionistic history and said he actually wanted to be through Anakin, but it originally was through the droids. It's kind of what's going on here is you have these major players in the story, Aurora and Prince Philip and King Stefan and those kinds of things, but it's all focused around the three good fairies and Maleficent. And so on to Maleficent. In my opinion, Maleficent is the greatest Disney villain of all time. She is voiced by Eleanor Audley, who's also the voice of the evil stepmother in Cinderella. I like her a little even better in this movie. She's got that kind of dignified but evil sense to her where she can go up in pitch and down and up, and it's just fantastic. She was brought back to do this movie, and interestingly enough had to take a lot of breaks and they weren't sure if she could actually do it because she was suffering from tuberculosis at the time that this was made. She survived and lived quite a bit longer after this came out. The movie was actually in production from 1950 until 1959. It was kind of a little pet project of Disney. He wanted to get this one out, and he actually went as far as to name the castle at Disneyland, which was completed in the mid-50s, Sleeping Beauty's castle, even though Sleeping Beauty the movie had not been released yet. The movie was then released in 1959, and it subsequently bombed. I did not know that, but looking into it, the movie actually lost money, and it had a very large budget of $6 million, which even in the 50s was an enormous amount of money. But it's actually 6 times, I believe, what Star Wars budget was, the original Star Wars. And it only grossed in $5-point-something million. And then it has subsequently gone on to become one of the more critically acclaimed Disney movies after that. But at the time, it was much maligned. And it's kind of hard to tell why, because I think it's an extremely, extremely solid fairy tale. There are 2 scenes in this movie that I think are absolutely fantastic. The first scene is when Princess Aurora is left alone sobbing in the tower, and then she starts hearing the Maleficent music, and it starts leading her up the stairs in like a trance to the spinning wheel. If you pay attention to the music in that scene and how it keeps just escalating and intensifying, and it bounces back and forth between the good fairies and Princess Aurora and the good fairies, that scene is absolutely fantastic. Another scene that I think is great in the movie is when Prince Philip is in the dungeon and Maleficent comes down to kind of taunt him a little bit, and she tells a story about how he's going to be there until he's old, and then what she's saying is not actually what's being shown on the screen. She says he's going to valiantly ride out on his trusty steed and save the princess, and then it shows his old horse, and he's old, slowly riding out the gate. And it's just the way that Maleficent is mocking him in that scene, it kind of gives you chills a little bit. It's so well done.
Off he rides on his noble steed, a valiant figure, straight and tall, to wake his love with love's first kiss, and prove that true love conquers all.
I found something somewhat interesting as well in the movie is that Prince Philip has several lines in the movie, and then after he's captured, he doesn't talk again the rest of the movie. And so for about the last 25 to 30 minutes, he has no dialogue, which I don't know if that was just something that happened or if that was intentional, but if you start paying attention to it, it's really kind of weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Because when Maleficent does talk to him in the dungeon, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything while he's fighting the dragon. Doesn't say anything while he's cutting through the thorn bushes. He doesn't have any dialogue after that. So I found that interesting. This was the first, some more just little tidbits about it. This was the first animated movie by Disney that did the 16:9 ratio. So if you notice, if you watch this on Disney Plus, it doesn't have to crop it off at the edges. It should format to your TV. And I found that interesting. It was also the first Disney animated movie to do a moving shot in it that took a lot of effort. The movie took 9 years, like I said, to make, and I think a lot of that had to do with the painting, the background paintings in this movie. If you look at them, they are absolutely gorgeous. It's worth just sitting there watching and looking at the background paintings that the action's taking place over the top of. They are fantastic. Princess Aurora was voiced by Mary Costa, who actually has a very thick Southern accent.
Such an honor. I feel so blessed because now I met little children years ago, and now they're grown and have their own children, and they still come back to see me. It's been so wonderful. It truly has.
And she was given the part if she could do a British accent, which I thought was interesting because when I listen to Princess Aurora, I don't hear the Southern accent, but I don't really hear much of a British accent either. Tell me what you guys think. If you watch the movie, does she sound British to you? I don't think she actually does. Several of the other actors do, but she almost just sounds kind of a bit more just formal, but I wouldn't say British. So this movie came out back when it was okay to have themes like true love and have a princess that needed rescued and for people to fall in love very quickly in the forest. And I think that's part of its charm is it's just so eloquent, and the music and everything. It's an absolute fairy tale. They wanted it to be different than Cinderella and Snow White, and I think they achieved that, but it still also has some of the same themes. It actually has some of the biblical armor of God in it with the shield of virtue and the sword of truth. I thought that was a pretty cool little nod there. And it just has a lot of very, very, very cool things in it. And it's always been one of my absolute favorite Disney movies. And I know that I rag on Disney on this channel quite a bit, and I think they deserve it today. But I wish that they still came out with movies like this, and I wanted to give them credit for coming out with a movie like this, even though it came out 60 years ago. But yeah, you can check it out using the link in the description. I thank you guys so much for all of your support and your subscriptions, and for giving the videos thumbs up and all that. It really helps. If you want to support the channel, our Venmo is also in the description. You can send us a donation and a movie request. I'm going to try to do some more videos this weekend. I'm just kind of watching football and trying to recover a bit, so I should have some time if my voice can handle it. But I wanted to get one out for you guys. So those are my thoughts on Sleeping Beauty. Laters on the Benjay.
Laters on the Benjay.
Ships on bigger of the waves are skimming barren summits to the verdant plains. Each horizon is a new beginning. Rise